All right, got some new live pictures right there of New Bern, North Carolina, taking the brunt of that storm as it roared ashore earlier this morning, inundating that community with flooding. We've heard of multiple water rescues, over 200 as of about 8 o'clock this morning. It's certainly feeling for our neighbors up north.
That's right, North Carolina hours into feeling the power of Florence. There are 3 new videos from our northern neighbor. You can see strong winds and rain from Craven County, which is north of Wilmington. People are also having to be evacuated from the storm by boat after flooding in River Bend.
Our sister station in New Bern, in fact, had to be evacuated after the station itself began to flood. All right, let's get right over to the First Warning Weather Center. Right now, we're going to start thinking about when we're going to see effects from Florence here in the Low Country. Meteorologist Emily Gracie getting you ready, timing this thing out for us. Em?
All right, guys, well, I know you step outside out there right now and you see sunshine. It's very confusing, but bear in mind this thing is barely moving at this time, so it's going to take a while for impacts to be felt in the Low Country, but we are certainly not out of the woods. Here's the latest update that just came in with the new wind speed. It actually just went up to 6 miles per hour, so it is moving along a little bit faster now, but to the west. Now, it has winds at 80 miles per hour, so still a hurricane at this time, but not exactly as strong as it was. It was a Category 1 with winds at 90 miles an hour when it did make landfall early this morning at about 7:15 near Wrightsville Beach. And as you can see, it has just barely moved since then. When you think about 5-6 miles per hour, well, we can move faster than that. So this is barely moving. Now, over the next several days, it's going to impact a huge portion of the Carolinas. It's just a matter of where in the Carolinas and exactly how much rain is going to fall at this point. But the wind's becoming less of a concern. And now we're onto that water. It's always a concern when we talk about hurricanes, from storm surge, inland flooding, freshwater flooding. These are all concerns we deal with when it comes to hurricanes. So look at this very slow forward movement. Even by 8 p.m. tonight, it is just getting into the state of South Carolina at that point, potentially weakening back to a tropical storm by tomorrow. Now, by tomorrow at 8 p.m., moving through the center of our state. So very slow mover here. And it doesn't matter if at that point it's a tropical storm. It's the rain that's going to continue to be an issue. And if you think about some of these areas in South Carolina, even into North Carolina, as it starts to move back north again, even as a tropical depression, if it's moving slowly through those areas, it's going to cause a lot of rain, which could cause some issues with those elevation changes. Mudslides always a concern for some of those mountains, and western North Carolina, portions of Tennessee, Kentucky, up in towards even western portions of Virginia. These are areas that are all at risk of dealing with impacts from Florence. So long term, it is going to continue to move north again, but let's take a look at the short term because this thing still has a lot of moisture with it. Take a look at the rain that's just pouring down now in portions of North Carolina, but also now in South Carolina. So portions of Horry County getting some of those heavier bands of rain, Myrtle Beach, and then extending down to Georgetown. Not quite as heavy there, but still that rain starting to move in very slowly. So as the system slowly works its way a little bit farther to the west, we'll start to feel those impacts. Winds are still picking up out there, and they're going to continue to pick up as the day goes on, and that rain will eventually move in. It'll take a little while to get here. We'll start to see some rounds of showers and then eventually some rounds of heavy rain. So we are still under that tropical storm warning for now, and flash flooding a major concern, but also now from the Weather Service, they're issuing a flood warning for the Santee River. So they're saying these inland areas flooding is certainly going to be a very likely possibility with those rivers as well. So many impacts we'll be dealing with. I'll go over the timeline on them and specific to Charleston, how much rain will fall. That's coming up in a few minutes.
All right, Emily, thank you. Remember, you can stay up to date 24/7 with Florence on our ABC News 4 app, which will also keep you updated with breaking news through the storm. It's free to download on your smartphone.
So far, we're not seeing a heavy hit here locally, but we'll be ready for the storm if and when, of course, it gets here.
That's right. You can see where our team of reporters are stationed today up and down the coast. We also have a roving crew inland working to keep you informed. So let's start with a live look in Myrtle Beach, the place where South Carolina is starting to now feel the effects of Florence, and conditions are starting to deteriorate in the tourist town. Dan Lepernello shows us what the storm's like in the northern part of the state's coast.
The weather has really started to deteriorate here in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, as Florence starts to make its way here. The wind gusts have really gotten out of control in some areas with some damage. As you can see behind me, awnings have started to fall off of some of the stores and businesses that weren't secured, as well as some of the palm fronds that are coming down as well. And driving themselves down into the street. But one of the most interesting things about the skyline here is one of the amusement rides that is just freely swinging up in the air there. It is just freely going back and forth to make sure that it does not get toppled by these winds. It's the same thing you see in big cities when they have large cranes. So that is just going to be freely swinging around over the next few hours and days as this storm continues to come to a head here in Myrtle Beach. We're going to have plenty more here as well as online of Florence's path as well as the damage that's going to be left behind here over the next few days. But for now, I'm Dan Lamparello reporting in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
And we've watched it go from being calm up there now to this, so it just shows you how things are starting to progress just a little bit. But rise and fall, that's the flow of floodwaters when it rains in Georgetown.
And as Hurricane Florence approaches our viewing area, Scotty Eisberg downtown in Georgetown, he found one local who says that floodwaters won't stop him from protecting the town he loves.
We are joined now by Shannon Murphy, Georgetown resident. You work at two places here downtown. You said that you've been walking up on Front Street and down Front Street since 5 this morning. Why is that?
Because I love this town and I wanted to make sure this town is protected and watch everything that's going on. And it's just, I live 2 blocks away and I just wanted to be here during the storm.
So far, it seems like so good. Do you kind of feel like maybe you're dodging a bullet, or do you feel like, all right, the rain's going to come, we kind of know what's getting?
Yeah, my instincts are we're dodging a bullet right now. I think it's going north to Wilmington. We're dodging a bullet right now. Rain, if you look down here, you'll see a low level. That will flood. And that's about all we're going to get. Well, you know, and the residents here are going to get flooded. Down here at these Castaways Bar, some of these other places, they're prepared for it. But that's probably about all we're going to get, just like last year.
You work at Castaways. You said last year you flooded right away. It's on a low-lying spot. How catastrophic is it for you guys? How tough is it for you, a guy who relies on that salary?
Well, it was. We closed down for 3 days, but the owners had their families that came in. Their families could put down new replacement boards, replacement floor. They got the business back up and going, and that helped everybody because we were dependent on that.
And you said you work at the Rice Museum. Do you guys have to worry about flooding over there or not?
No. You see how high that is? That's very high. It's all down here, and that will flood because we're on a tidal flow system. That Sept River is a tidal flow system, rise and fall. So depending on what this weather does, rise and fall.
And you said that river runs right really under the restaurant?
Under the bar. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Shannon, best of luck to you. We hope all goes well, and I guess you'll be out here on Front Street just kind of monitoring all day?
I'm watching.
There you go. And watch Channel 4 when you go home and watch on TV. How about that?
Thank you.
That is Shannon Murphy from here in Georgetown. Guys, we'll send it back to you.
All right, Scotty, thank you. The hero right there. And take a look at this new video just into our newsroom, just a little south of Georgetown. You can see winds starting to pick up in the McClellanville area, just ahead of Florence.
And McClellanville is where we find our own Megan Rivers, who's been there since before the break of dawn. Megan, what's the weather like right now where you are?
Well, at this very moment, it's starting to drizzle. It wasn't doing this literally as you tossed to me. It started to drizzle. The wind is starting to pick up. We've been saying that all morning because the wind keeps picking up. But it's pretty much a ghost town. You've seen just a few people on the roadways right now. But what you've seen a lot of around McClellanville is Charleston County Sheriff's officers, deputies. They're all around the area patrolling because a number of businesses have boarded up, and they're trying to make sure that businesses stay safe. Another thing is we've noticed a few of them with K-9 units. I had a chance to speak with one deputy on how he's preparing his K-9 officer for the effects of Hurricane Florence.
Once we get the dog, as a part of his weekly and daily training process, we expose them continuously to anything that we can find. This will be the first storm that he's going to, major storm he's going to be exposed to.
Well, that was Kaiser. He's about 3 years old, not quite yet. This is his first storm, like he said, that he'll be experiencing. But again, McClellanville, the conditions right now are pretty mild. You can see this subway flag behind me, just, you know, blowing in the wind a little bit. Just a few cars on the roadways. Most businesses in McClellanville have already closed and are not opening today. We'll continue to be here and bring you the latest on the conditions as they worsen, if they worsen, and we'll be sure to update you on air and online and on Facebook as well. I'll send things back to you guys in the studio.
All right, Megan, be safe out there. We're keeping a close eye on Florence's path, of course, and checking in on conditions around the low country.
We're going to have a look at Sullivan's Island as well as downtown Charleston ahead of the storm. That's next. So one big effect of Florence that we're already feeling here in the low country on the coast, of course. We've been dealing with those rip currents for a few days now. Our Erica Lunsford is out on Sullivan's Island. Erica, so what's the latest? What's going on out there now?
Out here on Sullivan's Island, people are taking in their last few moments at the beach before the remnants of Florence come in. They're out walking their dogs and riding their bikes. And here's a look at what some people had to say earlier today. A hurricane warning couldn't stop people from heading out to the beach on Sullivan's Island.
Yeah, I mean, it's windier. It looks like we're probably going to get some rain, but I don't think it's any worse than, a bad thunderstorm, honestly.
Hurricane Florence brings a chance of heavy rains and stronger winds, but many have the same idea to hurry out and enjoy the weather while it lasts.
The thing is, we have to do something with the kids. So they're just going crazy in the house. So take them out to the beach, let them run.
Today was also the perfect opportunity to let their furry friends run free.
Because this dog wants to come. Dogs rule the world. Winter, summer, spring, fall, every day.
People are still allowed on and off the island for now, but with a possible storm surge hitting the area, that could all change. Right now, the winds are picking up a little bit. They're a little strong. We're expected to see stronger winds along with some rain later on today. Working for you, Eric Lunsford, ABC News 4.
ABC News 4 First Warning Weather with meteorologist Emily Gracie.
Well, it's getting a little bit windy out there. Take a live look outside right now. You can see the current out there moving along. Some breezy conditions. Camera shaking around a little bit as well. It's still warm though. Even with cloudy skies out there, we are still getting those warm conditions with temperatures in the mid-80s. No rain falling around the city right now, but there is some rain falling in our area just to our north. In fact, northern portions of Charleston County starting to get some of those outer bands. Just some showers though right now. The heaviest of the rain still well off to our north. There it is right there. Florence, the Category 1 hurricane, still moving along very slowly through North Carolina, moving towards the west at only 6 miles per hour. So we're looking at a pretty slow mover here for the next several days, and that's why the concern, not exactly the wind speed anymore with this thing, as it is a pretty weak hurricane. However, that slow forward movement has been an issue and will be an issue. It's got through several high tides there along the coastline of North Carolina, so that's why the surge was a huge concern there, and the rainfall. Right now, we're starting to get that rain into portions of Horry County, Myrtle Beach, getting the wind, the rain there. Some heavier bands now starting to come down, and then Georgetown County picking up some of those heavier bands as well. Even northern portions of Charleston County getting close to the city. Ondaw, McClellanville, a few bands of rain, but in and around Charleston, we just haven't seen much as far as rain, and it could be a while before we really start to get into the thick of the rain. As far as winds are concerned, those have picked up. We've seen a windy day out there, or even just a breezy day in some spots. Right now, northwest wind at 20 miles per hour here in Charleston. The winds will pick up a little bit as the day goes on. We're expecting some pretty windy conditions, especially going in towards later tonight and early tomorrow morning. Let's talk rain for a minute, though, because it's always a huge role here in Charleston as far as our flooding. And if it corresponds with those high tides, we could be looking at some flooding concerns. But I do think the majority of our flooding concerns for the state are going to be in other areas. So this is 5 p.m. today. Notice we're just starting to get into things here in Charleston County, and it'll continue to very slowly push a little bit farther south. But for the most part, this system is moving due west. So a lot of those areas to our north are going to be more impacted. Even northern portions of Berkeley County and Charleston County are going to get greater rainfall totals than the city and certainly areas south of town. So McClellanville getting into some heavy rain overnight tonight. Certainly those areas north of town, places like Cross, Orangeburg starting to get into it, especially by early tomorrow morning. But look at that bottom edge, some southern portions of the state at this point, according to our futurecast, is not showing any rain at all. So big differences depending on what part of our viewing area you are in. By tomorrow at 5 p.m., we're starting to see some improvement out there, but it's not done yet. This thing is just moving very slowly across the state through the day tomorrow and into Sunday. So Sunday, 10 a.m., you can see some portions of North Carolina still getting the rain, and so it's going to add up to quite a bit. So how much? These are 7-day rain totals. So this is over the next several days. We'll be looking at rainfall totals, and a big difference depending on where you are. Now, you can really see that difference. Areas like Florence down to Myrtle Beach could get 6 to 12 inches of rain. Of course, areas up towards Wilmington, more than 15 inches. Then you get a little bit farther south, we're talking portions of Georgetown County, Berkeley County even could get 3 to 8 inches of rain. It's still a lot of rain, and that's why that river flooding is a concern for the Santee River. A little bit farther south, you get into Charleston County, places like Somerville, North Charleston, the city itself, 2 to 5 inches of rain. And as you keep going south, we're talking less than 2 inches of rain in areas south of town. Places like Kiowa, very vulnerable to hurricanes, could end up being one of the spots that is least impacted by this particular storm. So I think areas that we're looking at major flooding concerns, Florence over to Columbia, especially if this takes a more direct westerly path, places like Columbia could certainly have greater impacts than even areas in the low country. So high tides are going to play a big role here. We tend to flood around high tide. So if we get those heavier bands of rain during those times, we are looking at that greater flooding potential. So high tide over the next few days. I'm not too worried about the one that just happened or is about to happen, but the one later tonight, 12:35 in the morning, that's certainly one we'll watch. And then tomorrow, even more so, 1:20 in the afternoon, and then going into early Sunday morning, overnight 1:25 in the morning. Those are going to be the times of day that we watch very closely. So the big impacts here in the low country continue to be wind and rain. Wind could be anywhere from 20 to 40 miles per hour with gusts higher than that, starting through the middle of the day today, going through tomorrow evening. As far as rain, like I said, depending on where you live, going to be a big difference. Could be 2 to 8 inches, though. Pretty broad spectrum. Higher amounts are going to be north. That starts tonight, goes through the day tomorrow and into Sunday as well. Guys?
All right, Emily, thank you. Well, as our weather team has been saying, one big concern from Florence could be flooding.
Yep, and one place that floods on a regular basis, of course, downtown Charleston. That's where we find our own Brody Hardy. He's been there all morning long. Brody, we know it's not raining there yet, but what's downtown like ahead of Florence?
Hey, John. Yeah, so downtown's steadily getting busier. We're moved over to Waterfront Park after being over by the market all day. This area has been busy throughout the entire morning. We've seen a lot of people walking around with their dogs. We even saw a family flying a kite a few minutes ago, but we can definitely see a few more clouds rolling in. You can see how windy it is here. Just kind of through all the palmetto trees that are up and down Waterfront Park. We just have one of the, I would say probably one of the strongest wind gusts that we've had throughout the morning. Just a few seconds ago before we came on live with you. Nothing crazy, but definitely stronger wind than what we felt this morning. As we're kind of looking out at the bay, though, we can see we lost that sunshine that we had earlier this morning. It was a really beautiful morning, still a nice day outside. Beautiful day. A lot of people are out and about. That's one reason why is they're trying to get out ahead of this storm, as it kind of keeps jogging in our direction. Now, I've got Andrea Coyle. She lives on James Island. She said she's sticking this storm out. She's joining us live, and you said it's because you live for this stuff, right? What does that mean?
Well, my husband and I, and my two kids, we really watch the Weather Channel. We kind of get excited. We stayed for Hurricane Matthew. We stayed for Irma, helped out some neighbors on James Island.
Okay. So what have you done to kind of keep safe? What have you done to get ahead of the storm?
We have a ton of water, a lot of canned food, bread, milk. We have a generator. We did board up one of our big windows, but that's about it. Gas in the car.
Yeah. And you still, but even with all of that, you still thought about potentially evacuating earlier in the week?
Absolutely. On Wednesday, we thought we were going to head to Florida, and then kept a close eye on the storm and decided to ride it out.
Yeah. Now, as it gets a little bit windier, you see some clouds rolling in. Are you getting nervous at all? Do you still feel pretty good about it?
No, I'm not really nervous. Yeah. I'm just, I have a lot of energy, so I hope we keep power, so I'm not going crazy. Yeah. The kids are going crazy.
And you said you've lived here for 17 years, though, so you've lived through several hurricanes, and you haven't evacuated for any of them?
No, we've never evacuated. Boarded up. Lost power for 4 days for Matthew, but we've never evacuated.
Okay, well, Andrea, good luck to you and your family.
Thank you.
All right. So that's just one example of what a lot of people around the low country are doing. They're battening down the hatches and getting ready for this storm as it continues to head our way, no matter how bad it is. Definitely likely not going to see what they're seeing up north of us in North Carolina. Our thoughts are definitely with all those people up there. We're seeing a lot of rescues going on right now, and they're definitely not out of the woods. And neither are we at this point, as Emily Gracie and Chris Nessman have been saying, something we got to keep an eye on throughout the next couple of days, throughout this weekend. But we're live at Waterfront Park right now, very busy. I showed you a lot of people still walking around, so they kind of probably a lot of stir craziness right now. People want to get out of the house before this storm gets to us. But guys, that's the latest from here. I'll go ahead and get it back to you in the studio.
Thanks, Brody. Yeah, that's one of the terms. You hear a lot of people say that they're stir crazy, but we'll be here tracking Florence's path until it's safely out of the low country.
Next up, we're going to check on Berkeley County, where many are sheltering through the storm. And just in, Beaufort County schools, they're going to reopen on Monday.
Yeah, but before we go to break, a quick live look at Wilmington. And remember, if you can't be near a TV during the storm, you can catch some of our weather coverage on the radio. That includes 1250 WTMA, Magic 107.3, and Nash FM 96.9.
Last check, about 400,000 people in North Carolina without power at this hour.
That's including the location where we find ABC's Natalie Brunell in Wilmington tracking Florence for us.
Hurricane Florence lashing the Carolinas. The slow, vicious storm delivering sheets of rain and ferocious winds topping 105 miles per hour in Wilmington. Waters rising rapidly.
Rainwater and surge are forcing sounds and rivers over their banks.
In New Bern, North Carolina, waves reaching first-floor windows, prompting emergency situations.
I've never seen this kind of damage here.
Hundreds needing rescue.
George, gosh, it's like a bombs have gone off here. There's a lot of water.
Along the Outer Banks, swift destruction, deadly storm surge engulfing homes. ABC crews spread throughout the storm zone, caught in the thick of it, like meteorologist Ginger Z.
I came inside because at one point while we were out there in the eye wall, the winds were so severe that the deck we were standing on started ripping apart.
This storm's disastrously slow crawl, dumping feet of rain, a relentless assault that will continue into the weekend. The developing concern is high tide, which just started at 11 a.m. and will continue to push dangerous flooding into communities and make rescues even more difficult. In Wilmington, North Carolina, Natalie Brunell, ABC News.
So when to see just how much of Florence will be felt here in the Low Country, well, of course, be right here, keeping our eye on it. Our special noon broadcast continuing with more coverage on Florence right after this. That's what it's like inside a hurricane. Storm chaser Brandon Ivy capturing this earlier this morning up in Wilmington, North Carolina.
Pretty fierce there. He was positioned along the west side of the eye wall. Hundreds of thousands of people are without power in North Carolina. We're going to catch you up on everything happening so far there in just a bit.
Got a team of reporters ready for whatever Florence brings to the Low Country all morning. We've been looking live from Wilmington to downtown Charleston up into Berkeley County.
And it's actually been a gorgeous morning for much of us. Breezy, warm, and some sunshine here and there. Here's a live look right now, though. Can't see much. Is that Myrtle Beach?
That's
yes.
the Grand Strand, yeah.
Okay.
Looking fogged in right there and really getting those heavy rains and winds right now. Meteorologist Emily Gracie, the First Warning Weather Center. And we've been waiting. Looks like we're going to have to wait a little bit more.
Well, yeah, you have to wait a long time for a system that's moving 6 miles per hour. We're not talking about a really quick onset of impacts. They will be here. They're just going to take a while to get here, and it's not going to happen suddenly. We're already starting to see some rain in northern portions of the state. This is still a Category 1 hurricane. The winds, though, down to 80 miles per hour. Still nothing that we need to brush aside, because this is going to be something that we're dealing with for not only today, but for several days. 45 miles now east, northeast of Myrtle Beach. Those impacts being felt, obviously, as you saw there in Myrtle Beach. The latest track here, and we're getting these updates constantly now from the Hurricane Center now that it is on shore. Still a Category 1 hurricane. It did make landfall at 7:15 this morning near Wrightsville Beach. Very, very slow. It took a long time to make that landfall. That eye wall just slowly moving over the beaches and into Wilmington, and that's why they are dealing with all that rain, because it has been going on for now more than a day, and it's still going to be going on for portions of North Carolina for another half a day or so. Even the back edge of this has a lot of rain with it. So take a look at the track here. Still expected to stay a Category 1, pretty weak hurricane at that point going into later this evening and early tomorrow morning. Likely downgraded to a tropical storm during the day tomorrow, if not sooner. Now the track, we are no longer in that cone of uncertainty, but that doesn't mean we're not going to feel impacts here in Charleston. Fortunately, we are on the side of a hurricane. You want to be on the side of the south side. So we are on that left side. If you think of it moving along a track, the area on that left side is going to be the weaker side. So that onshore motion is going to stay there on that north side, bringing the most rain and the strongest winds to folks on the north side of this line right here. So once it does move through the middle of the state, it is going to be such a slow mover that the flooding rain is a huge concern for a huge chunk of South Carolina and portions of North Carolina too. Even places like Charlotte are going to get a lot of rain out of this. And then moving into western North Carolina, we're talking at that point at getting to the Appalachians, and so that is why we are worried about a lot of issues back there with mudslides, and then eventually potentially moving up towards Ohio going into early next week. So this is a slow mover through the weekend and then picking up in a little bit of forward speed by early next week. Look at this thing on the satellite imagery. You can really see on this where all of that energy is right around the center, and then shooting off to the north and east, and then the east side. A lot of that energy, a lot of that rain, the wind, all there. Getting some dry air though on the backside, and that's why we haven't really gotten those impacts quite yet here in Charleston, but they are coming. That rain is on the way. It's already impacting folks in areas like McClellanville, even into Mount Pleasant. A few showers now, getting close to 526. Nothing too heavy, mostly just breezy conditions right now in our area, but it is on the way. You can see all that rain to our north. So Myrtle Beach starting to get now into the thick of things, and we're going to be tracking it as it gets closer. I'm going to break down the timeline of our impacts and how much rain we could get here in Charleston. That's coming up.
Now, our sister station WCTI in New Bern forced to evacuate their studios last night. The rising floodwaters crept into that station, forcing the staff to leave. Look at the set right there. Now, our other sister station, WPD in Myrtle Beach, they picked up their coverage. New Bern, of course, is experiencing storm surges of 10 feet of water and higher. That's on top of the heavy rains they're getting. At last count, 150 people are waiting to be rescued in that area.
Well, back now to our team of reporters on the ground. We now turn to Maxine Bensel covering the situation for us in Wilmington.
Good morning from Wilmington. Right now, we are in the eye wall of Hurricane Florence, the storm making landfall just several miles from here in the Wrightsville Beach area, which has been evacuated there all along the ocean. Take a look at what we're seeing here this morning. Right here in this Wilmington neighborhood, a lot of downed trees, dozens throughout the neighborhood. Look how close this one came to the car. This is actually the home that we are staying in. So right now, we are stranded here. We can't get our car out of the driveway. I'm going to walk you down here a little bit more. This tree is enormous. You can see the roots of it here, just how it cracked and uplifted here. Just a big tree. And if you take a look a little further up here, we have another one, some branches and just debris everywhere. And at the end of the road here, we're starting to see some flooding. Now, right now, we're experiencing mostly just heavy winds, as you can see, as we're in that eye wall. Those winds expected to pick up a little more, a lot of debris and a little bit of rain. Not quite the downpour that we were expecting to wake up to this morning, just that wind and rain. We're monitoring the situation as Florence moves through, but it is here and we are feeling her wrath this morning. Reporting in near Wrightsville Beach, I'm Maxine Bensel.
Thank you, Maxine. And we just got some new information in the last half hour regarding power outages. This is from Santee Cooper. They say more than 36,000 customers are without power. The majority of those are between Myrtle Beach and North Carolina. Well, some areas near rivers in our viewing area have been put under flood warnings in just the last hour. That means people there are trying to protect their property, neighbors helping neighbors. Yeah, they're in front of Goose Creek Fire Department. They're working to fill sandbags for the last minute for people who need them. They say they aren't leaving until everyone who needs one of those sandbags has one. And that's where we find our Ann Emerson. And just how many people are out there getting ready for this possible flooding? And see some folks behind you.
I know, it's incredible, isn't it? There's a lot of people behind me still, and it's been like that. We've been coming back to the sandbag location for a little while. There are a lot of people here. A lot of people who need to get some last-minute preparations done. We just had a band come through here, and I had to get my rain jacket out, and I thought, oh, here it comes. Heavy winds, lots of rain was spraying on people, but they're here and they're working. And you know what? What we also saw was, in a crisis, we've heard this before, look for the helpers. And the folks that we met and talked to out here, it was incredible. They were out there really helping each other and not leaving until the work was done today.
All right. We appreciate that. Downtown can flood, of course, on a normal day, let alone drenching rains from a potential tropical storm. Brody Hart's been live downtown for us this morning. And Brody, more and more people out, or still pretty quiet down there on the Battery?
All right, seems like we had some technical difficulties.
Pretty quiet indeed, I'd say, huh?
So quiet. How quiet is it? Yeah, that happens, but we'll be checking back in with Brody here a little bit. Let's go out to the Georgetown area now, where Scott Iceberg is hanging out. Hey, Scotty.
Hey, good morning, John and Tessa. Good to talk to you again here in Georgetown. A little windier than last time, a little rainier than last time, but for the most part, we haven't seen any real true effects of a hurricane or tropical storm yet right here. I want to show you a couple quick things. First, guy was just telling me there's a bunch of guys hanging out at the bar here. They're just kind of chilling out at the bar, because what else are you going to do besides hang out at Buzz's Roast when you're waiting for the hurricane to come in? It's the only place open here on the pier in Georgetown. But he said one of the guys might have had a couple cocktails, but that doesn't matter. He knows what he's talking about. He said the boat, there was a 45-foot sport fishing boat right there at the edge where it kind of goes around there. That boat is now up on the island, so it's already been washed up onto the island. This boat right in the middle of the bay here is tethered down. I don't know how long it's going to be tethered down for, though. This thing is kind of floating. You can see the waves are rippling a lot more than they have in the past. So things are looking more storm-like here in Georgetown. Interestingly, we bumped into the former mayor of Georgetown, Jack Scoville, earlier and said, hey, Jack, why don't you give us a ride? Just kind of show us around. He's been here for all the storms in the past, and he did just that.
I don't think it will be as bad as Hugo. The winds seem to be coming predominantly from the north, so we're going to have a lot of wind and rain here. I think the biggest problem is going to be trees and limbs. That's going to cause the biggest problem locally, I think. I wish our federal government was taking a more serious attitude towards global warming, because these storms are coming much more frequently and they're much more severe than they used to be.
Scoville was just actually going to his office to get a new keyboard. He spilled a glass of water on his keyboard last night at home, but he is certainly a man who has been through it all here in Georgetown. Several hurricanes, several floods. He's been through Hugo, and of course he was here through the horrific fires just a couple of years ago. And one thing he said to me in that car, this town certainly has a great emergency management division. Those guys take care of things quickly, and he said the town is also very resilient. We will see how resilient it is when the rains and the winds really start coming later on today. For now, live in Georgetown, John and Tessa, I'll send it back to you guys.
Scotty, thank you. Private citizen Jack Scoville there. Something different. Downtown can, of course, flood on that normal day, as we told you. Let's check back in with Brody Hart. Brody, you got us now. What's it looking like down there on the Battery in White Point?
Yeah, John, so it's been getting steadily busier, honestly, since we last talked to you here at Waterfront Park. Excuse me, at Waterfront Park. It's kind of funny. You can see the wind has been picking up here, but at this point, nobody really seems to care or really connected to the fact that we may be getting a storm rolling in our direction. Nothing too bad right now. The wind's kind of been on and off, but we have been getting some heavier gusts in the last few minutes, really than we have all morning long. And that's just kind of something to keep an eye on. We know the storm could be something that gets a little serious for us in the next, well, this afternoon into the evening and tomorrow morning, really. Just something that's going to take some time to see what happens, but we can see as we look out to the bay there, we finally have some darker clouds. We lost that sunshine that we had earlier this morning, and it really was a beautiful morning, turned into a beautiful late morning now. And that's really one reason why we think that so many people are out here right now kind of enjoying this. I used the word stir crazy last half hour when I was live with you. I really feel like that's kind of a contagious thing around here. Everybody just seems like they need to get out and about to kind of see, well, what's going on in the world outside their own four walls. I've talked to a lot of people who said that they've never evacuated before. That's why they're still here, even though the mandatory evacuation order was issued on Monday. You know, they say, well, look, we just feel comfortable here. We'd rather be here. So, like it or not, a lot of people defied that order and decided they were going to stick around. So we'll have to see what happens. Hopefully everybody has made the proper precautions, regardless of really how severely these impacts are on us in the next day or two. But we're live at the Waterfront Park, guys. We'll get it back to you.
All right, it kind of looks like fun down there. All right, Brody, thank you. Coming up, we're going airborne. New drone showing us the skies in Dorchester County.
Yep, our team of meteorologists can let you know when it's going to be raining here in the Low Country, when it's going to stop. Next.
All right, we're getting new video from the air. Our photojournalist captured this a short time ago over Flourtown. The skies were a bit windy, the heart of Somerville this morning. Not looking too bad though sky-wise. No rain falling there quite yet. The winds are picking up not just in Somerville but also a little bit farther south. Take a look right now. We do have cloudy skies over Edisto and we are seeing some breezy conditions out there right now, but no rain falling along Edisto, just some rough seas. So right now in Edisto it is warm, mid-80s still along those beaches. Definitely not cooling off with the breeze out there, but other than that we've seen reports of some blue sky in a few locations. No rain falling right now around the Charleston area. A little brief shower maybe right there in North Charleston along 26 near where 526 is, but that's about it for Charleston County. A little bit farther north though, there it is, the rain moving into Georgetown County, a little bit heavier now, and Horry County certainly picking up with that heavy rain. Those bands from that center are getting closer and closer to South Carolina right now. Myrtle Beach really getting into the thick of things. This is moving due west though very slowly at about 6 miles per hour. So we're just getting into this in the state of South Carolina. Florence now getting some of those outer bands of Florence, a little bit confusing, but Florence could be one of those spots that does get some flooding and some higher rain amounts over the next couple of days. Let's take a look at the winds right now. Northwest wind at 20 miles per hour here in Charleston, gusting higher than that. Those winds will pick up even more so by later today. We do have that chance of some tropical storm force winds and could gust even higher than that. That's why we are a little bit concerned about power outages. The risk is there. It is low, but it is there for Charleston. Now, as we go a little bit farther north, places like Myrtle Beach and Florence and a huge chunk of North Carolina is at that moderate risk. And then, of course, we've seen widespread power outages through eastern North Carolina. Here's our futurecast. I want to show you one particular computer model, and this one's actually been doing a pretty good job with Florence so far. Has it moving due west through the day today and into tonight. So this is 2 a.m. tomorrow morning. Notice it's moving, just getting close to Florence at that point with some of those outer bands, and then moving through the state as it continues to weaken during the day tomorrow, and then very slowly continuing that trek across South Carolina even into early Sunday morning, and then later Sunday starting to take that turn off to the north. So closer to home, what does that mean? I want to zoom in here on Charleston with our futurecast and show you when to expect some of that rain here in Charleston. It's going to come in. It'll be slow to happen, but eventually as we get in towards later today, this is 6 p.m., we're starting to see some of that heavier rain approach northern Charleston County and then coming down into the city overnight tonight, getting heavier at times. Some areas to our south, take a look at Beaufort. According to this computer model, not even getting rain. So certainly a big difference depending where in the state you are. Now by tomorrow at 6 p.m. we're starting to see some improvement out there both in the wind and the rain. So I think between tonight and then midday tomorrow, that's kind of when we're going to be in the thick of things as far as both rain and wind. How much rain is going to fall? It's hugely dependent on where you live. Here's our rainfall totals that I am going with here for the next several days. And bear in mind, this is about a 3-day event, so it's going to take a while for this to get out of here. And when it's all said and done, of course, places like Wilmington are going to be the highest, 15+ inches, but Myrtle Beach over to Florence could be 6 to 12 inches of rain. That's a lot of rain. 3 to 8 inches, though, in areas a little bit closer to home, places like Georgetown County, even northern Charleston County, over towards northern Berkeley County. These are spots that could get quite a bit of rain, and that does extend up into the Midlands, too. So if you did evacuate, if you're watching us online and you evacuated to somewhere like Columbia, you could get more rain in Columbia than we get here in Charleston. So Charleston, about 2 to 5 inches is what I'm guessing as far as that rainfall, with those higher amounts being farther north and the lower amounts being farther south. But 2 to 5 inches on a regular day here in Charleston, that's a lot of rain. So we're keeping a close eye on those high tides, and we could still see some flooding in and around the city, especially those low-lying areas. All right, 7-day forecast. Today, rain starting to move in later in the day. We are going to stay cloudy and we're going to get a little windy. Now by tomorrow, a windy, rainy day, especially early on in the day. By Sunday, things starting to taper off, and by Monday, I think improvement out there. Back to life as we know it. Very summer-like conditions, warm through the middle of the week with a chance of afternoon storms.
All right, Emily, thank you. And we want you to chime in. Feel free to send us videos and pictures throughout the duration of Florence. You can upload them at abcnews4.com/chime in. But remember, safety first. Don't put yourself in harm's way.
So when it does rain, how do you keep all this dry?
Oh, this is going inside.
Oh.
Well, some areas near rivers in our viewing area have been put under flood warnings in just the last hour. That means people there are trying to protect their property, and neighbors are helping neighbors.
Let's go back out to our Ann Emerson live in Goose Creek. She's finding out more about those efforts. Ann?
Hi, John. Yes, and we've had a whole rain shower pass through here, and we've got a bunch of folks still out here. We're at a sandbag location in Goose Creek. It's outside the Goose Creek Fire Department on Buttonhall Avenue, and these guys have been at it for quite a while. Take a look at some of the video we shot earlier. They have really been just filling them up and putting them away into the cars as fast as they can. These are last-minute preparations, and it takes a lot of hands to do that kind of work. And what we were finding out here was that people were staying after they had filled up their cars to help other folks that needed some help. And I want you to hear what they had to say.
And I saw some elderly people needing help, so I stayed and helped them. And then it just trickled down, more people coming, so I decided to help them. And I've been out here for about an hour helping people.
You know, there's really no better feeling than helping other people out, especially during a hurricane. And so I figured we could do what we can. If that's loading sandbags, then load some sandbags.
It was great to hear, especially right before this storm hits. You know, it's really nice to see people helping other people out here, because this isn't easy work. They were really working up a sweat, and it was nice to just have a minute and see people trying to help other people before they go inside, hunker down, and get ready for whatever part of this storm is going to pass through this area. Now, and to remember, this is an area that is historically flooded, so that's very important to the folks here in Goose Creek to get these sandbags filled up, and hopefully that's what's happened now. You know, we talked to the police department earlier today, and they told us, Captain Laffey said, what was good about this storm, what we can take away, that silver lining, is that folks had a little bit more time to prepare than they even thought they were going to. So that really meant that they were boarding up, putting the sandbags out, and as you can see, there's still a few more sandbags that are going to go into place before this storm really comes to Goose Creek. Back to you in the studio. I'm Ann Emerson.
All right, Ann, thank you. We'll stay with us. Our special coverage of Hurricane Florence continues. As we go to break, some breaking news for you. Emergency responders in Horry County say they will not respond anymore. The winds there just too high. Dangerous conditions right there. Take a look at the destruction right there.
Okay, thank you.
All right, welcome back, buddy. Tracking Florence. One big worry we may have dodged is the threat of that storm surge and beach erosion still very much in effect.
Indeed, Erica Lunsford is on Sullivan's Island. Erica, what's it like now out on the beach? Any changes?
You know, guys, I've been saying it all day. Oh, it's so great out here. Oh, it feels great. Nothing's going on. But now conditions are going downhill. The clouds are rolling in. It's getting really, really windy out here. I know I've been saying it's been windy all day, but now they are starting to pick up. A few people are still out here on the island taking in their last few moments, but you can definitely tell a storm is rolling in as we are under a tropical storm warning here on Sullivan's Island. Now, a few patrol cars have been riding along the beach just to make sure everyone's okay. They're just doing their daily job, daily routine, keeping up operations going as usual. But yeah, it's I can't say that anymore. All my sunshine, it's going away. The clouds are rolling in, and we are expected to see something going on soon. All right, so this is we're going to keep you guys updated. We're going to be here all night. This is from Sullivan's Island. I'm Erica Lunsford with ABC News 4.
All right, Erica, thank you. Make
More
sure you stay
coverage.
with us.
Yeah, Hurricane Florence continuing.
One woman in Myrtle Beach was planning to ride out the storm until a group of strangers came to the rescue.
Christine Meinhold didn't want to evacuate without her pets. 7 dogs, to be exact. 2 of those dogs she rescued from the floodwaters of Hurricane Matthew, actually. She said she just didn't have the means to evacuate all of those dogs.
One woman saw the story on CNN, coordinated a crowd surf fund to raise money for a van. Here you can see all the dogs in the van driving to safety in Tennessee, where Meinhold has family.
Very cool. All right, let's get a latest track on that forecast. Hurricane Florence, Emily Gracie joining us.
All right, guys. Well, first I want to show you a live look outside right now. The clouds rolling in on Edisto. Our Georgetown injury lawyer, Skyview Network, showing it is not raining on Edisto. And fortunately, some of those areas south of Charleston aren't going to get as much rain as areas north of Charleston, so the impacts while along the coastline I don't think will be quite as intense as areas perhaps a little bit farther north and inland. So areas like northern Berkeley County could get quite a bit of rain. Here's the latest here on Hurricane Florence. Still a hurricane. It's weaker, 80-mile-per-hour winds right now within that center of circulation, moving to the west at 6 miles per hour, and it is now starting to move into South Carolina. So the last couple of frames here, we're seeing it move closer to South Carolina as a Category 1 hurricane. Here's the latest track, which no longer includes Charleston. So that's the good news. The bad news is we're not free of impacts here in the low country. We are feeling that wind already, and the rain starting to come in as the day goes on. Some areas north of town already getting that rain. Here's the track though, and notice basically the forward motion just being very slow with this track. So that's always been the concern, the rainfall and exactly how much is going to fall and where it's going to fall. So notice that track moving right through South Carolina. So we stay on the south side of the storm. That's good news. Now the bad news is we could be looking at flooding rain pretty much anywhere in the state. It is a possibility. Places like Columbia, though, just as much at risk, if not more so, than Charleston and the upstate as well. Places that have a little bit more difference in elevation, certainly at risk with that heavier rain. So it is expected to weaken, move north, perhaps through western North Carolina, eastern Tennessee, even into Kentucky, Virginia. Places like West Virginia, certainly at risk of some flooding as well as this continues to move north going into early next week. Right now, just starting to see some showers moving into Charleston County. Other than that, just some clouds and wind out there. Really just breezy at this time. But Georgetown County getting some heavier rain now, and of course Horry County near Myrtle Beach, their winds are picking up. You can see that center of circulation moving due west now, getting close to South Carolina. So heavy rain has just been pounding the coastline of North Carolina. A lot of that energy is on that north side, so we are going to keep a close eye on that. But really, it's looking like a lot of drying conditions on the backside of this, so better news for us. Still keeping a close eye on high tides today. We have our high tide coming late tonight and early tomorrow morning. We just had a high tide. Have not seen reports of flooding yet, but we will certainly let you know if we do, even before the rain. Just that surge of water coming on shore certainly could cause some flooding. Winds, especially in coastal areas, are going to be pretty high out there, and that power outage index is showing that power outages are certainly possible, although we don't think that they will be too widespread for the low country. All right, as far as how much rain is going to fall, it looks like here in Charleston it could be anywhere from 2 to 5 inches, much higher totals though north of town.
All right, Ann, thank you, and thank you guys at home for joining us. We plan to bring you wall-to-wall coverage if conditions, of course, worsen and warrant.
Of course, be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and send us pictures. We'll see you soon. Have a blessed one.